Comment where you're watching from today, and let us witness how a simple glass of lemonade led to an extraordinary moment that would change a young boy's life forever. On a sweltering summer afternoon in Los Angeles, 12-year-old Alex Cooper stood behind his makeshift lemonade stand, carefully arranging his homemade signs and plastic cups. The stand itself wasn't much to look at, just a folding table with a checkered tablecloth, a large cooler, and a few hand-drawn signs advertising best lemonade in LA for $2 a cup. While other kids his age were enjoying their summer vacation at the pool or playing video games, Alex had spent every day for the past 3 weeks at his corner spot, rain or shine. There was something different about this young entrepreneur, a determination in his eyes that seemed beyond his years, a seriousness to his work that made passing adults do a double-take. Chris and Laura Bennett, regulars at Alex's stand, had noticed how he meticulously counted his earnings at the end of each day, carefully separating the bills and coins into different compartments of a small metal box. This wasn't a child's summer project for pocket money. There was purpose behind every sale, though nobody knew exactly what that purpose was. Mrs. Andrews, the elderly neighbor who lived on the corner, had taken to bringing Alex water and snacks throughout the day. She'd noticed how he rarely took breaks, how he would politely decline offers to go play with other kids who passed by. "You should rest a bit, dear," she'd say, but Alex would just smile and shake his head, his eyes scanning the street for potential customers. The local community had grown used to seeing him there, his small figure standing straight and professional behind his stand, thanking each customer with a courtesy that seemed almost out of place in someone so young. Officer Kevin Barnes, who patrolled the neighborhood, made it a point to stop by daily, not just for the lemonade, which he claimed was genuinely the best he'd ever tasted, but to keep an eye on the dedicated young vendor. What none of them knew was that every evening, after packing up his stand and storing it in Mrs. Andrews' garage, Alex would walk the 6 blocks home to the small apartment he shared with his mother, Rachel. There, he would quietly slip the day's earnings into a jar hidden in his closet, right next to a stack of medical bills he wasn't supposed to know about. Rachel Cooper worked double shifts as a nurse at the local hospital, often leaving before dawn and returning long after Alex had gone to bed. She didn't know about her son's summer business venture. Alex had told her he was spending his days at the local library, and Mrs. Andrews had agreed to cover for him, sensing there was something special about this boy's mission. That particular afternoon, as the temperature climbed past 90 degrees, business had been slower than usual. Alex stood patiently, occasionally wiping his forehead with the back of his hand, but never losing his professional demeanor. He'd learned early on that looking tired or discouraged was bad for business, so he maintained his friendly smile despite the heat. Grace Martinez, a local reporter who lived in the neighborhood, had passed by several times over the weeks, intrigued by Alex's dedication. She'd noticed how he never used his phone or read books during slow periods. Instead, he would clean his workspace, rearrange his cups, or practice his sales pitch under his breath. It was around 3 o'clock when a sleek black motorcycle pulled up to the curb near Alex's stand. The rider, dressed in a fitted black t-shirt and jeans, removed his helmet to reveal a face that would have been instantly recognizable to most adults: Jason Statham, the famous action star. But to Alex, he was just another potential customer, and that was exactly how Statham wanted it. "Heard this was the best lemonade in LA," Statham said, approaching the stand with his characteristic confident stride. His British accent caught Alex's attention, but the boy maintained his professional composure, standing a little straighter as he responded, "Yes, sir. Would you like to try some?" Statham noticed the careful way Alex handled the plastic cup, how he made sure it was perfectly clean before pouring, how he added exactly 2 ice cubes, no more, no less. There was a precision to his movements that spoke of practice and pride in his work. "How long have you been in business?" Statham asked, taking a sip of the lemonade. His eyebrows raised slightly. It actually was exceptional lemonade, with the perfect balance of sweet and tart. 3 weeks, sir," Alex replied, his eyes brightening at the customer's obvious appreciation of his product. "I make it fresh every morning. My grandmother's recipe." What Alex didn't mention was that he'd spent weeks perfecting that recipe, using the small kitchen during the precious few hours his mother was home sleeping between shifts. He'd learned through trial and error exactly how much sugar to add, how long to let the lemons steep, What temperature worked best? Statham took another sip, studying the young entrepreneur. There was something about the boy's demeanor that didn't quite fit with the typical image of a kid's summer lemonade stand. The careful way he handled money, the professional attitude, the focused determination in his eyes, it all hinted at a deeper story. "I'll take another," Statham said, pulling out his wallet. He noticed how Alex's eyes flickered briefly to the bills inside, not with greed, but with what seemed like careful calculation. As he handed over the second cup, Alex's sleeve rode up slightly, revealing a hospital visitor's band that he quickly tugged his sleeve back over. That small detail didn't escape Statham's notice, nor did the slight tremor in Alex's hand as he made change, not from nervousness, but from fatigue. This kid had clearly been standing in the heat for hours, yet he showed no signs of quitting. Emma Wright, another regular customer, passed by at that moment. She gave Alex her usual warm smile but stopped short when she recognized Statham. The action star gave her a subtle shake of the head. He didn't want to break the spell of this ordinary moment just yet. As Statham finished his second cup of lemonade, he engaged Alex in casual conversation, asking about his business model, his marketing strategy, his plans for expansion. The boy answered each question thoughtfully, revealing a level of business acumen that was remarkable for his age. "You know," Statham said, leaning slightly on the stand, "most kids would be at the beach on a day like this." He watched carefully for Alex's reaction. A shadow passed briefly across the boy's face before he composed himself. "Yes, sir," he replied with practiced casualness, "but this is more important." That simple statement, delivered with such quiet conviction, confirmed what Statham had begun to suspect. There was much more to this story than a simple summer business venture. Let us know in the comments if you've ever encountered someone whose dedication to a seemingly simple task made you stop and wonder about their story. Because what Jason Statham was about to discover about young Alex Cooper would change not just one life, but an entire community. As the afternoon heat began to soften into early evening, Jason Statham found himself lingering at Alex's lemonade stand, something about the young boy's determination striking a chord with him. The more he observed, the more certain he became that there was an untold story behind this simple stand. Officer Kevin Barnes drove by on his regular patrol, slowing down as he approached the stand. He'd been keeping an eye on Alex all summer, impressed by the boy's work ethic but also concerned about his long hours in the heat. Seeing Statham at the stand, the officer did a double-take but maintained his casual demeanor for Alex's sake. "The usual Alex?" Officer Barnes asked, parking his patrol car and approaching the stand. The boy efficiently prepared a cup of lemonade, adding the 2 precise ice cubes that had become his signature. The police officer took a sip and nodded appreciatively, then turned to Statham. "Best lemonade in LA, right?" Statham agreed, watching the interaction between the officer and the young entrepreneur. There was something protective in the way Officer Barnes positioned himself, as if he too had sensed there was more to Alex's story than met the eye. Mrs. Andrews emerged from her house, carrying a small paper bag. "Alex, dear, you haven't taken your break yet?" she called out, approaching the stand with the concern of a grandmother. The boy tried to politely decline the offered snack, but Statham noticed how his hands shook slightly as he reached for the bag. He was exhausted but trying not to show it. As Alex carefully arranged his supplies during a quiet moment, a piece of paper fell from his pocket. Statham, who was still standing nearby, noticed it was a hospital bill before Alex quickly snatched it up and tucked it away. The action star's expression remained neutral, but his mind was racing, putting together the pieces of the puzzle. Grace Martinez, the local reporter, had been observing from a nearby cafe. She'd been following Alex's story all summer, intrigued by his dedication but respecting his privacy. Now, seeing Statham's interest in the young vendor, she sensed that something significant was about to unfold. The afternoon continued, and Statham noticed how Alex handled each customer with the same professional courtesy, regardless of whether they were businesspeople in suits or children with handfuls of change. He saw how the boy carefully wrapped ice in paper towels for elderly customers to help them stay cool, never accepting extra tips for these small acts of kindness. Chris and Laura Bennett stopped by for their daily lemonade, exchanging worried glances when they saw how tired Alex looked. They'd been regular customers since the stand opened, and Laura had noticed how Alex always seemed to be counting his earnings with specific targets in mind, rather than the casual way most kids would handle their summer money. As the sun began to set, Michael Foster, a passerby who had become a regular customer, approached the stand. He was a doctor at the local hospital, though Alex didn't know this. Foster had recognized the hospital visitors band on Alex's wrist weeks ago but had respected the boy's privacy. Today, however, seeing Statham's continued presence and obvious interest, he decided to share what he knew. "You know," Foster said quietly to Statham while Alex was serving another customer, "I've seen him at the hospital. He visits every evening after he closes up here, always heading to the oncology ward." The piece of information hit Statham hard. He watched as Alex continued to serve customers, his professional demeanor never wavering despite what must have been overwhelming exhaustion and worry. The boy's dedication suddenly took on a whole new meaning. Emma Wright, another regular customer, chose that moment to stop by. She worked as a nurse in the same hospital as Alex's mother, though she hadn't made the connection until now. Seeing Statham and Foster in quiet conversation, she added her own piece to the puzzle. "Rachel Cooper," she said softly, "works double shifts in pediatrics. Single mother, never complains. I had no idea her son was out here doing this." Statham absorbed this information, watching as Alex methodically began his end-of-day cleanup routine. The boy counted his earnings with focused concentration, his expression falling slightly as he noted the day's total, clearly short of whatever goal he had set. Officer Barnes had circled back around, parking his patrol car where he could keep an eye on Alex as the day wound down. He'd been doing this every evening, ensuring the boy got his stand packed up safely before dark. Mrs. Andrews emerged from her house again, ready to help Alex store his stand in her garage as she did every evening. She caught Statham's eye and nodded slightly. She knew there was a story here, but it wasn't hers to tell. As Alex began to pack up his supplies, Statham noticed how the boy's movements had slowed, fatigue finally showing through his professional facade. Yet there was still determination in every action, a sense of purpose that transcended simple summer entrepreneurship. Grace Martinez had moved closer, her reporter's instincts telling her that something important was unfolding. She watched as Statham helped Alex lift the heavy cooler, seeing how the action star's face softened with understanding and concern. "You've got quite a business here," Statham said casually as they worked. "Must have a pretty important reason to work so hard." Alex paused for a moment, his young face showing a flash of adult worry before he composed himself. "Yes, sir," he replied simply, but his hand unconsciously moved to touch his pocket where he'd stored the hospital bill. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the neighborhood. Mrs. Andrews supervised as Alex and Statham stored the stand in her garage, her concerned eyes following the boy's tired movements. She knew he would now walk the 6 blocks home, then head to the hospital as he did every evening. Officer Barnes was preparing to follow discreetly in his patrol car, as he had been doing all summer, ensuring Alex made it home safely. But today was different. Today, Jason Statham was here, and the action star had no intention of letting the story end with a simple goodbye. Let us know in the comments if you've ever discovered that someone's simple actions were hiding a much deeper, more meaningful purpose. What made you look closer? Because what Jason Statham did next would prove that sometimes the biggest acts of kindness start with simply paying attention to the small details that others might miss. As Alex gathered his backpack and prepared for his walk home, Jason Statham made a decision. He couldn't simply walk away from what he had witnessed today. The action star was known for his tough guy roles, but it was the quiet strength of this 12-year-old boy that had truly moved him. "Mind if I walk with you?" Statham asked casually, falling into step beside Alex. The boy looked surprised but nodded politely, clutching his day's earnings close to his chest. Officer Barnes, watching from his patrol car, smiled knowingly and held back, sensing that something important was about to happen. As they walked, Statham noticed how Alex would occasionally check his watch, clearly anxious about timing. The hospital visitor's band on his wrist caught the early evening light, a silent testament to whatever burden this young boy was carrying. "You know," Statham said carefully, "I started working when I was young too. Selling jewelry on the streets of London. Had my reasons back then." He watched as Alex's steps slowed slightly, the boy's attention caught by this personal detail. Mrs. Andrews, who had followed them to the corner, exchanged glances with Grace Martinez. The reporter had her phone ready to document what was unfolding, but she held back, understanding that some stories need to develop in their own time. They were passing by the local hospital when Alex's pace suddenly quickened. Through the windows, they could see nurses changing shifts, and Statham caught sight of a woman in scrubs who bore a striking resemblance to Alex. Rachel Cooper looked exhausted but carried herself with the same quiet dignity her son displayed. "That's my mom," Alex said softly, his professional veneer cracking slightly. "She works really hard. Double shifts most days." He paused, then added in an even quieter voice, "She doesn't know about the lemonade stand." Statham remained silent, giving the boy space to continue if he chose to. They had stopped walking now, standing in the shadow of the hospital building. In the distance, Officer Barnes kept his quiet vigil, while Grace Martinez and Mrs. Andrews watched from around the corner. "She's got," Alex started, then stopped, struggling with whether to share his secret. The weight of his summer-long mission seemed to press down on his young shoulders. "She's got cancer," he finally whispered. "Found out 3 months ago." The truth finally emerged. Rachel Cooper had been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. The insurance covered some of the treatment, but the experimental therapy that offered the best chance of success was beyond their means. Alex had overheard the doctors discussing costs with his mother late one night. "The treatment costs $50,000, Alex continued, his voice stronger now. "I've made almost 800 so far. It's not much, but—" He trailed off, the magnitude of his task finally overwhelming him. Dr. William Hayes, the renowned pediatric surgeon who had been following Alex's story from afar, happened to be leaving the hospital at that moment. He knew Rachel Cooper's case well. She was not just a nurse in his ward but a dedicated healthcare professional who had helped countless children over the years. Statham absorbed this information, his mind racing. Here was a boy who, instead of enjoying his summer vacation, had taken it upon himself to help his mother in the only way he knew how. The action star had faced many challenges in his life, but this display of pure determination touched him deeply. Emma Wright, who had followed them to the hospital, stepped forward now. As a nurse who worked with Rachel, she had suspected something was wrong but hadn't known the full story. "Rachel's one of our best nurses," she said softly. "She never misses a shift, never complains." None of us knew. Chris and Laura Bennett had also arrived, having closed their nearby shop early to follow this unfolding story. They had been buying lemonade from Alex every day, often paying more than the asking price, but they hadn't known the true purpose behind his dedicated efforts. "Mom doesn't want anyone to know," Alex explained, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "She says we'll figure something out. But I heard her crying last night looking at the bills. I had to do something." Grace Martinez stepped forward, unable to remain a silent observer any longer. As a reporter, she had covered many stories, but none had moved her quite like this one. The quiet dignity of a child trying to save his mother, one cup of lemonade at a time, was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Michael Foster, the doctor who had shared his observations with Statham earlier, arrived after his shift. He had been keeping an eye on Alex's stand all summer, impressed by the boy's dedication but never fully understanding its purpose until now. "The experimental treatment," Foster explained quietly to Statham, "has shown incredible promise. But it's not covered by insurance because it's still in trials. Rachel's a perfect candidate, but the cost." Officer Barnes had parked his car and joined the growing group of community members who had been quietly supporting Alex all summer. Each of them had sensed there was something special about this boy's mission, but none had known the full scope of his undertaking. "Every day," Mrs. Andrews shared, her voice thick with emotion, "he's here by 7 in the morning, setting up his stand. Never complains about the heat, never takes more than a 5-minute break. Now we know why." Statham looked at Alex, seeing not just a child running a lemonade stand, but a warrior fighting a battle that no 12-year-old should have to face. The boy stood straight, still protecting his day's earnings, still planning how to turn $2 cups of lemonade into his mother's salvation. "I've got a plan," Alex said, his voice growing stronger as he finally shared his secret with people who wanted to help. If I can sell enough lemonade, maybe get some regular customers at the office buildings nearby. I figured out I need to make about $500 a day to reach the goal in time. The simple math of his impossible task hung in the air. $500 a day in $2 increments. The magnitude of his undertaking and his determination to achieve it despite the odds struck everyone present. Rachel Cooper was due to start her night shift soon. Through the hospital windows, they could see her preparing for another long night of caring for others while carrying her own burden. She had no idea that her son had spent his entire summer trying to save her life, one cup of lemonade at a time. Let us know in the comments if you've ever discovered someone quietly fighting a battle you knew nothing about. What made you finally see the truth? Because what happened next would show that sometimes the biggest miracles start with the smallest acts of courage, like a child believing he could save his mother with nothing but lemons, sugar, and an unshakable determination. The evening sun cast long shadows across the hospital parking lot as Jason Statham looked at the small group of people who had gathered, each of them connected by their desire to help a 12-year-old boy with an impossible mission. But what happened next would prove that sometimes the biggest miracles come from the smallest beginnings. "Alex," Statham said, kneeling down to meet the boy at eye level, "you've been fighting this battle alone all summer. But that ends today." The action star pulled out his phone and made a quick call, speaking quietly but with purpose. When he hung up, he turned back to Alex with a smile. "First, we're going to talk to your mom." Dr. William Hayes stepped forward. "I can help with that. Rachel's shift starts in 20 minutes. We can catch her before she begins." The doctor had treated countless patients over his career, but rarely had he seen such dedication as Rachel Cooper showed, working double shifts while battling her own illness. Alex's eyes widened with worry. "But she doesn't know about the lemonade stand. She'll be upset I didn't tell her." His professional demeanor cracked slightly, showing the worried child beneath. "Sometimes," Statham said gently, "keeping secrets to protect people we love isn't as helpful as letting them know how much we care." The wisdom in his words resonated with everyone present. Grace Martinez, who had been quietly documenting the scene, stepped forward. "Alex, your story, your dedication, your love for your mother, it's something people need to hear. Would you let me share it?" The reporter knew this wasn't just another human interest story, it was a testament to the power of determination and community. Before Alex could respond, Emma Wright emerged from the hospital. "Rachel's in the break room. She has a few minutes before her shift." The nurse's eyes were warm with understanding. She had watched her colleague fight silently for months, never asking for help. The group made their way to the hospital's break room, where Rachel Cooper sat with her usual cup of coffee, preparing for another long night shift. When she saw Alex walk in with Jason Statham and Dr. Hayes, followed by familiar faces from the neighborhood, confusion crossed her tired features. "Alex? What's going on? I thought you were at the library." Her voice trailed off as her son approached, still clutching his day's earnings. "Mom," Alex began, his voice trembling slightly but growing stronger, "I need to show you something." He carefully placed his earnings on the table and pulled out a small notebook from his backpack. Inside were meticulous records of every day's sales, every dollar earned, all carefully tracked against his impossible goal. Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she realized what her son had been doing. "Oh, Alex," she whispered, "you've been running a lemonade stand? All summer? For me." Dr. Hayes stepped forward, explaining about the experimental treatment, how it could help, and how her son had taken it upon himself to try to make it happen. As he spoke, Rachel pulled Alex close, her medical professional composure breaking as she held her brave, determined boy. That's when Statham stepped forward. "Mrs. Cooper," he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who understood struggle, "your son has shown me what real strength looks like. But he's not alone anymore." The action star explained that his earlier phone call had been to his foundation. They would not only cover the full cost of Rachel's treatment but also establish a fund for other healthcare workers facing similar battles. Alex's determination had inspired something far bigger than himself. But that wasn't all. Grace Martinez shared how her initial social media posts about the story had already gone viral. People from across the city were asking how they could help, touched by the image of a boy spending his summer trying to save his mother, one cup of lemonade at a time. Chris and Laura Bennett announced they wanted to partner with Alex to sell his lemonade in their shop, with all proceeds going to help other families facing medical challenges. "Your recipe really is the best in LA," Chris said, making Alex smile through his tears. Officer Barnes, who had watched over Alex all summer, spoke about how the police department wanted to establish a community support program, inspired by how the neighborhood had quietly rallied around Alex and his mother. Mrs. Andrews, who had kept Alex's secret all summer, stepped forward to hug both mother and son. "Rachel, dear, you've spent so long taking care of others. Let us take care of you now." Michael Foster and Emma Wright, representing the hospital staff, presented Rachel with a letter signed by her colleagues, offering to cover her shifts during treatment without her losing any pay. "Your family," Emma said simply, "and family takes care of each other." As the reality of what was happening sank in, Rachel looked at her son with new eyes. "All those days at the library," she said softly, "you were standing in the heat, selling lemonade? Never giving up." Alex straightened his shoulders, looking more like the professional businessman he'd become over the summer. "Your treatment costs $50,000. I made $843.52 so far." He paused, then added with a slight smile, "I know it's not much, but I wasn't going to stop until I had enough." Statham, who had faced countless challenges in his own life, felt something catch in his throat. "That's where you're wrong, Alex," he said. "It's everything. You've shown that love doesn't calculate the odds, it just acts." Grace Martinez's story ran the next day, spreading across social media and national news. The image of Alex at his lemonade stand, professionally serving customers under the hot sun, became a symbol of determination and love. But the real story wasn't about the money raised or even the treatment made possible. It was about a boy who refused to give up, a mother who tried to carry her burden alone to protect her son, and a community that came together to show that no one has to face their battles alone. A week later, Alex's lemonade stand had a new location, in the hospital's main entrance, where staff, patients, and visitors could enjoy the best lemonade in LA while contributing to a fund helping other families facing medical challenges. Alex still insisted on adding exactly 2 ice cubes to each cup. Rachel's treatment began immediately, with Dr. Hayes overseeing her care. Her prognosis was good, but the greatest healing had already happened. The healing of a family that learned they didn't have to carry their burdens alone, and a community that discovered its own capacity for kindness. As for Jason Statham, he became a regular at Alex's stand, always paying far more than the $2 asking price. But more importantly, he helped show that true strength isn't about facing challenges alone, it's about having the courage to let others help. Let us know in the comments if you've ever witnessed a small act of determination grow into something bigger than anyone imagined. Have you seen a community come together to support one of their own? Share your story, because sometimes the greatest miracles start with something as simple as a cup of lemonade and a child's unwavering love for his mother.